My most viewed video of all time was a look at the best footballer from each of the 7 continents, and recently I've been going in pretty heavy with decade-related videos as we approach the end of the 2010s. One loyal subscriber suggested combining the 2 themes with a look at the best footballer from each of the 7 continents this decade, which is exactly what I'm going to do. By the way, I recently had a meeting with the YouTube partner manager who told me that 75% of the channel's views still come from people who aren't subscribed to the channel. So if you're a part of that 75% and you are a fan of the channel, why not get fully on board? Once I reach 350,000 subscribers and the Irish guy hits 500,000 subscribers, we're planning on doing some kind of collaboration. So maybe there's an extra incentive. And to the 25% of you who are already subscribed, you know who you are, and I hope Santa brings you all you could possibly need this Christmas, including a copy of England's greatest defender, The Untold Story of Neil Franklin, of course. Right, here are my views on the best footballer over the last decade from each of the 7 continents. Asia. Son Heung-min. Keeping true to tradition and starting with Asia, even though alphabetically it should quite clearly be Africa, I don't think there's likely to be too many debates about this one. The likes of Shinji Kagawa, Yuto Nagatomo and Keizuki Honda have all made their marks this decade, but I would suggest that Son Heung-min has taken it up a notch in terms of his impact and consistency at the highest level. Quick, inventive and technically brilliant, Son can play anywhere across a forward line, and his numbers, in terms of both goals and assists, are tremendous. Aged 27, Son was just a teenager at Hamburg when the decade began, but he has gone on to star for Bayer Leverkusen and Tottenham Hotspur, as well as scoring 26 goals from 87 caps for South Korea. Africa. Yaya Toure. Yaya Toure faces slightly tougher competition in Africa than Son Heung-min does in Asia, but I still think this pretty much is a no-brainer. Given that I am looking at a player's talents and contribution over an entire decade, rather than their peak performance at any stage over the last 10 years, the likes of Didier Drogba, Samuel Eto'o, Sadio Mane and Mohamed Salah simply aren't credible candidates. Drogba and Eto'o may have been brilliant in 2010, but they would soon fade away due to their age, whilst Mane and Salah have been tremendous for the latter part of the decade, but not at the start. In fairness, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang has been pretty ruthless and is the right age to rival Yaya Toure, but the Ivorian still gets the nod for me. A world-class all-round midfielder who could play with equal class in holding midfield or in attacking midfield, Toure began the decade at Barcelona but went on to become pivotal to almost everything Manchester City have achieved over the last 10 years. Europe. Cristiano Ronaldo. I'll be honest with you, barring one continent, this 7 was incredibly easy to put together. There have been some exquisite European footballers over this past decade, from Manuel Neuer and Sergio Ramos to Andres Iniesta and Robert Lewandowski. All are players of the highest calibre, and I could name several more, but it would be pretty academic given what Cristiano Ronaldo has done over the last 10 years. Ronaldo began the decade 6 months into life at Real Madrid, and he ended it as their all-time top scorer. He also is the top scorer in the history of the European Cup and Champions League, he has won 5 Ballon d'Ors, and he's made the FIFPro World 11 every single year during the 2010s. Ronaldo has gone from a fleet-footed box of tricks on the left flank to a cold-blooded poacher this decade, but he has always been ruthlessly brilliant and a masterful match winner. North America. Keylor Navas. At the start of this decade, there were North American players like Tim Howard and Javier Hernandez starring in the Premier League, and going into the upcoming decade, there are arguably even more exciting talents like Christian Pulisic, Alphonso Davies and Hirving Lozano. Howard and Hernandez are definite candidates here, as are Carlos Vela and arguably even Raul Jimenez. Ultimately though, any answer other than Keylor Navas would be a wrong answer. The Costa Rican number 1 was routinely described as a weak link at Real Madrid, but I rarely witnessed any evidence of that. Navas arrived in Spain with Albacete in 2010, he joined Levante in 2012, and he spent 2014 to 2019 at Real Madrid. Navas made 162 appearances for Real, winning the Champions League 3 times, and he never got anywhere near the credit he deserved. The 33-year-old, who has won 89 caps for Costa Rica, is now the first-choice goalkeeper at PSG. South America. Leonor Messi. The greatest South American footballer of the last decade, the greatest footballer of the last decade, and indeed the greatest footballer of all time as far as I'm concerned, Leonor Messi is perhaps the most tedious and obvious inclusion in this 7. Over the past 10 years, Messi has redefined, for me at least, what I thought possible of a footballer. He is quite possibly the single best goal scorer, playmaker, dribbler and passer of the ball on the planet, all rolled into one. And not only that, he has been all of those things, or at least close to all of those things, for close to 15 years. Even at the age of 32, there are elements of Messi's game which are still improving, and I'm not sure we'll ever see the like of him again. He has won the Ballon d'Or record 6 times, and like Cristiano Ronaldo, he has made every single FIFA Pro World 11 of the 2010s. Obviously, there have been many other fine South Americans this decade, whether it be Luis Suarez, Neymar, or Sergio Aguero, but Messi is quite simply on another planet. Australia/Oceania. Winston Reid. I said there was only one head scratcher in this 7, and as far as I'm concerned, that is the combined regions of Australia and Oceania. My first thought was Tim Cahill, but the Aussie superstar is 40 years old, meaning he was already 30 when the decade began, and he left Everton in 2012. Although he kept doing the business for the Socceroos long after that, that means Cahill only spent 2 of the 10 years in this decade playing at the highest level, so it just can't be him. Other candidates included Matt Ryan, Mark Schwarzer, Chris Wood, and Aaron Moy, but I think the right choice over the entire 10-year period has to be Winston Reid. A bit of a forgotten man at West Ham following a nightmare spell on the sidelines, Reid began the decade in Denmark with Midtjylland, but signed for the Hammers in the summer of 2010. Over the last decade, Reid has made over 220 appearances for West Ham and has won 25 caps for New Zealand. All but one of his seasons this decade have been in the Premier League, and he won the Hammer of the Year award for the 2012-13 season. It's not a slam dunk by any means, but Reid has been solid and dependable and would be an even safer pick were it not for his recent setbacks. Antarctica. Steve Freeze. Whilst Messi and Ronaldo were fairly obvious selections, a certain Antarctic penguin almost selects himself. Chinstrap penguins only have an average life expectancy of 15 to 20 years, and few penguins remain at the highest level for more than 5 years. That can make picking a best player from across an entire decade slightly tricky, but given Steve Freeze's accomplishments since 2015, I don't think there can be too many debates about this one. The 9-year-old was undoubtedly the best player in the division between 2015 and 2018, transitioning from a devastating centre forward into an equally prolific, deep-lying playmaker. Many thought his best days were behind him following that dreadful fractured bill in March of 2018. But Freeze has since put his best flipper forward and has come back with a bang. He may now have lost half a yard of pace, but 37 goals in Parmaland's opening 15 games this season shows he's not done just yet, and until Parmaland, along with the rest of Antarctica, melts and the whole world faces Armageddon, Steve Freeze will keep on finding the back of the net. He takes this one, and many would now call him the continent's GOAT. That's it for today's video. Thank you all for watching. Go ahead and give the video a like if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to the channel if you really enjoyed it. And with Christmas coming up, if you're a football fan or you know a football fan, it might be worth checking out www.englandsgreatestdefender.com for the ideal Christmas present.